Fabian, and tonight is interactive. What we will be doing in between calls is reading short little abstracts from previous issues of the Seventh Ray, which is our journal. So we'll be able to fill in with some interesting and humorous material and all of it, of course, relating to magic. But tonight we want to find out, if we possibly can, how you folks have been enjoying the show, and we want you to give us a call in and ask any questions on any of the shows that we've presented up to now. You know, we've covered quite a bit of ground. We still have quite a bit more to go, but anyway, so what I'm going to do until we get some call-ins, I'm going to just explore through the two previous issues of the new Seventh Ray. Actually, I say the new Seventh Ray. The Seventh Ray was our journal way back. We started it in 1971, and we continued it on through 1974. And it was a pamphlet size. I think we have a caller. It was a pamphlet size magazine, and now it's been reborn, and it's a journal. Go ahead and let's take the call. Okay, have we got somebody here? And we got what? You're on the air.
Hi, Mr. Runyon, can you hear me?
Yes, I sure can. You're coming through loud and clear. Who am I talking to?
I was a secret admirer.
Okay, secret admirer, what's your question?
My question is, or my statement is, we're really enjoying your talks, and we're wondering how to join your group.
Well, we're going to start. I'm glad you asked that question. We're going to start up an associate member program, and we'll use the internet. And we got a couple more callers coming in. We're going to use the internet as a basis for doing the contact on this. But we will start an associate member program. And what I mean by that is it's kind of an off-site program. We're going to start developing groups of like-minded people who want to, to get in on what we're doing, and eventually, of course, that'll get you into the regular OTA. And the idea being that once you get a group formed and get things going, we'll either come out to you and initiate, or you can come to us and we'll get it going. And that's what we're going to do. And so watch this program and keep in touch, and we'll certainly be able to get this thing going. Okay, I've got two more calls, so I'll let you go. And thanks for asking the question. Okay, who's next on the line here? You're on the air.
Hello, Friar Fabian.
Yeah, who am I speaking with?
Hi, this is Mike Dance. It's good to hear your voice. I had a question for you.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask a question about my own magical desire, or lack of it, and the OTA system, and your all's understanding of how things work. I've seen your videos with the Gothic workings, and it's roughly familiar to things I've done on my own with partners, but I've only used the Shamaphorish, and I noticed that you pair those two systems together, and I really haven't been attracted to evoking the Goetia. So, does that mean there's something wrong with me for not having that magical desire to go do that? Is this something that I need to do? Do you consider that optional? And what place does that whole series have in the OTA system?
Okay, I think I can answer the question there. The OTA got started way back in 1969, 1970 with my discovering this facial reflection distortion method, which turns out that we found out since that this really was a method that they did use, the ancient sorcerers used to evoke spirits to visible appearance. Well, the primary evocation system in Western magic is the Goetia. So that's where I started out. Now, at the time I started, I think you probably know the story. I was just about dead with this huge atrophied solid rock gallbladder that had been misdiagnosed, and I was out of my head, and I discovered this method, and that's how we started out. But when we got going and realized how powerful all this was, and all, then it became only one aspect, because you can't be on the dark side all the time. And also, too, not all the Goetia spirits are really dark. Actually, they're rebellious elements of mythology that relate to rebellious elements in yourself. And I'm not saying they're all just in your imagination. They're vast and they're powerful and all of that, but they still this is something that is kind of what some people would consider on the dark side, or some people would consider it psychically dangerous. So what we moved toward was balancing it out with angelic invocations and with planetary spirits and celestial magic and the contact with the Holy Guardian Angel. We balanced the whole program out. So now Goetia is just one aspect of it. And what I say about that is the only thing that's required in the OTA is that when you go to the second degree is that you receive act as a receiver in one goetic operation and then operate, and then you're through with that. You don't have to do any more of that at all if it isn't your thing. It's what we started out with, but I think we grew and progressed and matured, if that's the right word, since then. Now, I hope that answers your question. So, if Goetia is not all that we do, and it really shouldn't be considered the main thing. Although I know that that's what most people in the Gothic community and all, that's what they're interested in. Okay, we got any more?
Thanks.
We don't have any more. Yeah. Okay. If that answers your question,
that
let's go.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a practical question. How do we get the green ray?
The green ray. Well, the green ray is sitting at home on my Macintosh right now,
okay.
And it needs to go to the printers. So realistically, it'll be another month and a half before the green ray is available. Meanwhile, you might our two previous new seventh rays are available. The red ray and the blue ray are both available on Amazon. You can get those and catch up, and then the green ray will be out in about another month. Okay?
Okay. Thanks, and we'll talk to you again. Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Bye. And so, speaking of the ray, yeah. And speaking of the ray, I have a little article here. The Blu-ray, which came out, the Blu-ray came out back in 1999, yeah. The Blu-ray, and they're in the Blu-ray, we have a series of very interesting articles. We've got the Enochian, that's, by the way, too, that's another thing we do is the Enochian system. In the Blu-ray, we have Book H, which is the Clavicula Tabularum Enochii, which is by W. N. Westcott, and that was the secret document that the Golden Dawn based their Enochian, practical Enochian system on, and we have the only, as far as I know, ours is the only publication of Book H that's available. There's a partial publication, very, very partial publication,
in one of Stephen Skinner's new books. But we have, the Blu-ray has this in it. And I've got a caller. Let's take the call.
Hello?
You're on the air.
Oh, hi, folks.
Hi.
This is Joe.
Hey, Joe.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, what's the question?
Well,
Joe?
would you care to describe a full-body possession by maybe one of the more imperious entities?
Wait a minute. Run that by again?
Well, I'm thinking that you have something that you could describe. I think your listeners would find it interesting. A full-body possession by one of the more impetuous or imperious entities, somebody who isn't quite so easily controlled, shall we say.
Well, you're talking about a possession operation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, that is something that we haven't done in quite a while, and we haven't done it in quite a while because it's one of those things. I think it's a little bit dangerous. We did it in the past, and it hasn't hurt anybody as far as I know. But it certainly can be done, and it's with the way we did it, and I think this is described to some degree in the Book of Solomon's Magic, by the way, for people interested in finding out how to do it. But it's a variation on our mirror method, and essentially what it amounts to is instead of having an evocation where the spirit is contained in the triangle and you put the mirror in the triangle. Instead of that, you suspend the mirror overhead and the person lies in the circle and doesn't have the protection of the circle or the triangle and assumes the form of the god or the goddess. Now, what we, as I said, we years and years ago, when we were getting started back in the wild and woolly early 1970s, you know, in the late 60s, early 70s, when things were wild and woolly and really crazy and all of that. Yeah, we did do this, but now what we've done is we've relegated it to individual couples who want to do a ninth degree. Then this is a very good way of doing, well, I say a ninth degree, that's the OTO's term for it, but if you want to do the great rite, let's use the term the great rite. If you want to do that, then you both could get under the mirror one at a time, and you could evoke the god into your partner, and then your partner becomes the god and evokes the goddess into his partner, and then the two of you can have congress, and then you can charge your talisman and all that. And this is a beautiful, beautiful form of sex magic, far less mechanical than the way some people do it. So that's what has become of that particular rite in our respect. Does that answer your question, Joe?
Well, yeah. And I had one more question. Do you have time for another question?
Yeah.
I was interested to see if you could comment on the relationship between the OTA as it is these days, and I know your relationship with the Gothic spirits. Does the OTA have a relationship with the fairies or the nature sprites?
In the sense of the elementals, yes. In fact, one of the aspects of European magic was, and I think this is where the fairy faith and of the Celtic people, where that fairy faith kind of infiltrated into the Hermetic tradition, you know, that Agrippa and the rest of them were developing. I think that became incorporated into the personification of these elemental spirits. You know, the spirits of the four elements, the salamanders of fire, and the sylphs of the air, and the undines of the water, and the gnomes under the earth. These really are, you know, the personifications are very close to, and in fact you can see them this way, of the fairy spirits of the Celtic tradition. And as you and I both know, that those fairies weren't all just loving little sprites like Tinkerbell. Oh no. And so these are very powerful entities, and I think that and of course we deal with these, in our path workings and all. We really do. We get in there and contact the elementals, and each in the path workings, that we have, each member, when they have the path working, they have the gnome that you were walking along with tells you the secret of the gnomes, and the undine that you're swimming along with, and it tells you the secrets of the water element, and so you learn from these spirits, and then in turn you learn how to get them to do things for you. And so does that answer that question?
Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
Which sounds like a fun thing to do. Yeah, thank you.
By the way, your film that you have, and I give you an opportunity here to plug it. You've got this wonderful film that was the Dancing with Gaia that is one of the best expositions of the divine feminine and nature-oriented paganism that I've ever seen. I know you've been working on it for years and years. Would you tell us where we can go to get this? I'd like to get our listeners to pick up on this. We're certainly going to be reviewing it, of course, in the new Seventh Ray coming out. So tell us about it.
Well, thanks, Poke. Dancing with Gaia is about the connection between earth energies, sacred sexuality, and the return of the goddess as Gaia. And Gaia has become people have become so much more aware of Gaia in the past 10 years. It's really great. But people that want to know more about how they can actually start feeling the living earth within their own body as like their own selves as being a living part of the living earth, and that it's all connected and starting to feel like that the land is really alive and conscious. The film is dense with ideas on how to do this, how to really gain this sense of identity with the land and the larger consciousness of the earth. And
that's wonderful. Joe, I got another caller coming in.
Got another call?
I'll
just tell you where to get it.
Tell us where to go. Where to go. Yeah, right.
GaiaDancing.com.
GaiaDancing.com. Absolutely. And this is one that we really want to look at. Okay, thanks a lot, Joe.
Thank you, folks.
Right, and go ahead with our next call. You're on the air.
Hello?
Hi, you're on the air.
Hi, sweetie. I'm just listening to your wonderful show that you have. I just wanted to tell you that you have awesome shows, and I just wanted to give thanks and gratitude because we don't do that enough.
Well, I sure appreciate your kind words, and who am I speaking with?
You're talking to Radia in New York City.
Oh, good, Regina. Do you have a question for us while you're on?
No, I'm here to hear you talk and answer other people's questions and get whatever knowledge I can and just sit by the wayside and enjoy like I always do every time you come on the air, my friend.
Well, thank you so much, and we really appreciate you coming on, and keep on listening, and we'll hopefully be able to keep on giving you the information and on all that you're looking for. And
well, please do, because I would be very sad if you went off the air. I'd be very sad.
Well, we're going to stay on the air. Don't worry about that. Okay, we got another call coming in, and now I think between. Okay, all right. Just a minute. I'm going to call in here. No, what? If anyone wants to call in. Oh, and I called in, yeah. My lovely engineer and producer just handed me this and told me to to remind you that the call-in number, for those of you who want to call in, is 347-857-1830. I'll repeat that. That's 347-857-1830. So give us a call and let us know what your questions are and what your reactions are. And meanwhile, we got one caller. Yeah, okay. And you're on the air. Who am I speaking with? Are we? We should be on the air, are we? No, we're not. Okay. You'll try that again. Now, let me go back. I wonder if Mike Tolley is listening, and if he is, Mike, you remember back in 1999 when we did the Blu-ray, you wrote this satirical piece, which I thought was delightful, on the AA conspiracy, and we had a lot of fun with this. You wrote this thing up. I put the footnotes onto it, and before I read this, I have to make sure that everybody understands that this is a satire. Don't take this seriously. You conspiracy buffs. Don't. And the lead on this one is, our Mesopotamian mythology expert and devious cyber mage, Frater Shem, Mike Tolley, found this disturbing tract lying on the counter in a border town bus station. And we realize that it is proprietary, but because it is so insidious and inflammatory, we feel the need to present it along with our critical footnotes just to set the record straight. And it's called the AA Conspiracy, how the satanic Illuminati are plotting to incarnate Horus and enslave the world. The secrets of the apocalyptic agency revealed, and it's by Reverend Jacques Chiquet. Now, the AA, or as it is secretly known, the Apocalyptic Agency, is a direct offspring of the ancient pagan Sarmayan Brotherhood of Babylon, whose priests participated in blasphemous mystery religions with the demonic gods of Babylon. When the Babylonian Empire fell, certain high-ranking members of the priesthood preserved their evil rites in a small community in Iraq known as Haran. And still later, when our Lord's true religion grew and the Greek and Egyptian paganism was outlawed, priests of these other evil gods also retreated to Haran, where they went unnoticed among the vast desert lands. And when the sword of Islam swept through the Middle East, certain secret societies within Islam, masquerading as mystical organizations, absorbed the Iranian knowledge and preserved it. Now, I got a couple of footnotes on this. One is the AA is also known as Alcoholics Anonymous, but we have it on good authority that the AA actually stands for Argenta Mastermore Silver Star. Now, the second footnote is that Iranian Sabaean star magicians really did have a tremendous and largely unrecognized influence on medieval European magic, and they claimed a heritage that went back to ancient Sumer and a lineage from the last queen of Babylon. And we read the Divine Numata in this issue for the first complete system of Sabaean planetary rituals ever published in English. Of course, now the Picatrix is available, both translated from the Arabic and from the Latin. But back when we published this Seventh Ray, we were the first ones to publish it. Now, back to Mike's article. Chief among these was the cult of the assassins and their leader, Hassan ibn Saba. And Ibn Saba enslaved his followers by addiction to one of the most evil and potent drugs known to man, hashish, which is where the word assassin comes from. Hassan ibn Saba and his drug-crazed assassins battled the famous Knights Templar in the Crusades. But as the Crusades went on, contact between the Holy Knights and the assassins increased, and the Templars became increasingly influenced and infiltrated by assassins, partaking of their evil herb and eventually degenerating into a diabolical, Gnostic, magical society. Now this goes on and on, on this same line here, but finally we get to where we're talking about Crowley and the Great Beast. And one that I particularly liked here was when Mike has, let's see, he says, Crowley explored all forms of diabolism in their most extreme sadistic and perverted forms. In his magnum opus, Magic and Theory and Practice, he states that, quote, for the highest spiritual working, one must accordingly choose that victim which contains the greatest and purest force. A male child of perfect innocence and high intelligence is the most satisfactory and suitable victim. In a footnote on this outrageous statement, he goes on to declare that he himself performed such sacrificial murders on an average of 150 times a year for 16 years. Now, sounds terrible. I have a footnote on that one. Montague Summers also bit on this one. And if you read further in Crowley's footnote, it becomes obvious, at least to high school graduates, that Crowley is referring to what magicians who wish they could write better French would call le petit rite de Onan, the 8th degree for you Thelemites, following which, if one were to consume the zra of macroprosopis thus produced, we could add cannibalism to the charges. In this case, perhaps the good Reverend Chique is just shocking off. Oh, boy. In other words, a little explanation on that one. I had an answer to the people who said that Crowley was the wickedest man in the world. I said, no, he wasn't the wickedest man in the world. He was the naughtiest man in the world. And the reason was just exactly what we just quoted, that these people thought that he was talking about actually sacrificing male children. Well, what he was really talking about, it was giving himself some pleasure. So, and this article goes on and on to reveal the misconstrued hidden knowledge here, and he had a lot of fun with it. If Mike's listening, why don't you give me a call in, Mike? Well, you can talk about it. Anyway, we ended up with a little note here, the Conspiracy Fighters Manifesto, and that is, if you know who they are, you're one of them. And if you don't know who they are, you're one of us. They work in secret to confuse, coerce, and control us. They are few in number, but they are very powerful. We are many in number, but we are deceived, divided, and dominated by them. They are bad. We are good. We must fight them. No matter how well hidden they are, we can expose and destroy them because God is on our side. Yes. So, anyway, that was the AA conspiracy. The Seventh Ray also has a number of whole spectrum of different articles. One of the ones that we have in here is an article on geomancy, and geomancy, by the way, is not at least Hermetic geomancy is not a study of earth forms. It's a form of divination, and it is a very, very ancient form of divination. And what we made a discovery regarding this that was really quite a breakthrough. And I'll describe, if I can, how this works. Geomancy has 16 binary figures. It's kind of like I Ching in that sense, but it has 16 figures that are made up of rows of dots, and each one of these 16 figures is made up of 4 rows of 2 dots each, in a sort of a rectangular form. And what you got is a binary, which is very, very ancient. So with 16 forms, 16 different figures, these can be placed and were originally placed on dice. Now, hardly anybody knows that anymore. I realized this when I studied statistics. Oh boy, statistics wasn't all that easy for me, I'll tell you. But at least what I found out was that the history of dice. When I was studying statistics, I found out that dice were originally made out of the huckles of split-foot animals. Deer is probably the earliest. And what you do if you're back in the Paleolithic and you're a hunter, you kill a deer and you cut his feet off right quick and you take him to the shaman, and the shaman cuts these little knuckle bones out of the deer foot. You better do it quick because otherwise they get petrified. And then from these one deer, you produce 4 of these huckles. They have rounded tops and rounded bottoms on 4 sides. And once you, so what you got is you got 2 pairs of dice, four cubes, and they take 16 faces. So you have 16 faces, and you could put these basic figures on them. So these were the original bones. These were the original shaman's bones from way back in the Paleolithic. And that's all been forgotten. People have forgotten all about that. And we also found out, once we got into this, that fluorite crystals they're like pyramids, the tetrahedrons, and they have each one of these fluorite crystals has 8 sides, like a pyramid going up and a pyramid going down. It has 8 sides, and so if you have 2 of them, you have 16 sides, and you can put your geomatic figures on that. You can roll these. Now, this immediately, when we realized this, we realized that the Urim and the Thummim of the Bible, those mysterious divinatory stones that the high priest used, must have been, though originally, fluorite crystals with these ancient, very, very ancient geomatic figures on them. By the way, these geomatic figures are related to astrological signs. They're related to the elements. And so the form in which that you do the divination is an old square horoscope. And the divination it's a very, very accurate and a very powerful system of divination. And so we have an article in the Seventh Ray about this and how how it's done, and this is something that has been, I think, quite a contribution to making the ancient Hermetic system more accessible, because this is a much easier and a much more direct system of doing geomantic divination than the previous systems. And we have a caller. Go ahead. Hold on. You're on the air.
Hello.
Hey, who am I speaking with?
Are you talking to Julian from New York? How's it going?
Wow, it's going pretty good here. Now, have you been listening regularly to our show?
Yeah, I downloaded all the shows. It's great stuff. I got all your books and stuff. So.
Well, that's great.
I have a question that might be might be a little long-winded.
Well, that's good. That's good. I need a little long-winded question right now, so let me long-wind. What's your question?
Okay. Well, I'm really curious about like the history of all the groups, like whether it's the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn or Thelema, and the main figures and how things break down. I think that's really interesting, and I think it's mostly due to their own problems and their own beliefs. And I was reading Solomon's Magic, your book on Solomon's Magic, and I was really interested in this whole thing where you were talking about how they were scared of, anything having to do with hypnosis. And I think that, like in terms of Crowley, you have things with drugs and people like having, their crazy opinions about drugs and using that in the whole meditative process. I've worked with shamans as well that, use their own medicines, if you want to use that term, for their spiritual development and accessing the world.
Now, you want me to comment on the what
I'm getting at is what is your thoughts on the whole just barriers in the groups themselves, like whether it's like heavy topics like using hypnosis in a group setting, the whole drugs,
okay,
the hardcore stuff.
Okay, now here's how this came about in the first place, and what the situation was. Hypnosis, I mean self-hypnosis, ritual hypnosis, and if you go the Voodoo route, hysterical hypnosis, that's a form of hypnosis. All the various forms of magical hypnosis, and even yoga is in a sense a form of hypnosis. All these magical forms of hypnosis were really this is what makes magic work. Now, granted, magic is quite a bit based on astrology, and from a technical point of view, it partakes of astrology, and it partakes of natural medicine and various aspects like that. But the tactic, what makes it work, is some form of hypnotic trance. Now, any anthropologist knows this. I mean, this is obvious. But what happened back in Victorian times when the Golden Dawn and the OTO, both of them, when they were getting started, at that time there was a tremendous upsurge of fear and criticism of hypnosis, because it was just being discovered, and these mesmerists were putting on these stage shows, and frankly, they were scaring people. And hypnosis, if it's not understood, and if it's not carefully handled, it can be a rather shocking and a tremendously powerful thing. And so they were putting on these stage shows that were just literally people were having their mouths drop open, and so there was a lot of resentment against it, criticism of it. So consequently, the Golden Dawn, when they got started, they actually had in their oath, they said that you wouldn't be allowed to never allow anyone to put you under a hypnotic trance or anything like that. The OTO had the same thing. They completely turned against this because of all of this public resentment against it. Now, in doing this, they completely turned their back on the Renaissance and medieval methods of actually summoning spirits. The methods of actually having this visionary magic just went out the window. They didn't, because the Renaissance magicians used crystal balls and dark mirrors. That's what they used. So Golden Dawn, as I said, they cheated themselves out of this because of all of this public resentment against this sort of thing. Now, as far as the drug aspect of it is concerned, Crowley, of course, had substance abuse problems. And you can't blame him too much for that. He had asthma, and when he was a kid, they prescribed heroin for his asthma. By the time he was 19 or 20, he was a heroin addict, and because that's what he had as a prescription. And in those days, opium and heroin and cocaine and all those drugs, they weren't illegal. They weren't. People were experimenting with them and all that sort. I don't blame Crowley too much for getting into that, although that gave rise to a whole bunch of a type of drug magic, which has some relation to shamanic practices, but not too much to European magic. European magic of our tradition, the traditional magic, was essentially hypnotic. So they didn't have, they turned against hypnosis. So then Crowley comes along and says, oh, well, we have this other thing. And so that's how it started. Now, I'm not going to say that drugs are evil and all of that. I'm not going to make it kind of a value judgment. What I am going to say is this, that drug magic is mysticism. This is, frankly, yeah, sure, there are some substances that I suppose could enhance an operation that's driven by the will, but it's you don't need it, and a lot of drugs are more in the category of mysticism than they are in the category of magic. Frankly, I personally, even though I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna be a prima donna or anything like that, I'm not going to get moralistic here, but I am going to say this. I think you ought to be able to do magic using the traditional old hypnotic methods. I think and your own willpower and your own knowledge, I think you ought to be able to do it without that sort of thing. And that's what we do, by the way. And so does that answer the question pretty much?
Yeah, I was just curious about how all that factors into how groups break down, like how,
the answer that
can affect the whole group.
Yeah, that the OTO, even though they cleaned themselves up a lot, but still they have Crowley at the background and that sort of thing. We got 3 callers on the line, so I'm going to have to let's go on that one.
Right.
But anyway, thanks for the question. Right? Okay.
Take it.
Let's have another here. You're on the air. Yeah. Who must be here?
Hi. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the construction of the temple and the circle for magic practice, because I've read seemingly conflicting things that Crowley wrote about the temple, especially about how, it should be, a place, reserved for the magical practice, and the circle should remain there and things. But, he's also written that, a magician must take it as he finds it. So I was just curious what your take is on that.
Well,
if you don't really necessarily have the ability to dedicate, a room or a space to it permanently, it's a room used for other things, but can, use for that.
Then you're going to have to use your ingenium. Okay, now look. Have you read the Book of Solomon's Magic yet?
Just
well,
segments.
Please, I'm not trying to put you off because I'm going to answer your question, but I deal with at some length with that in the Book of Solomon's Magic on building your own temple and having your own temple. You can, if you don't have a room all to yourself, and it's nice to have a room all to yourself, but if you don't, you can adapt magical paraphernalia down to a minimum. I mean, you really can do it. It requires your own ingenuity, And yet there are certain things I think that you absolutely, if you're going to do arcana magic, and where you're going to do evocation and invocation and all that, you do need a circle, and you need a triangle, and you need a mirror, and you need a crystal, and you need some kind of an altar top, and then I think you need some representation of the four angels on the quarters, and you can get all this down to a minimum. You really can. But just whatever you do, I mean, as far as your minimum is concerned, make it good, make it nice. I mean, don't just,
It has to have equal symbolism for you or something.
Yeah, in other words, have good equipment, even though it's minimal equipment. It's minimal decoration, minimal equipment. Make sure it's the best. Make sure that it's good, and then you can get by with a minimum. Now, I've often thought that what we ought to do, and it's one of our problems, we have elaborate equipment. I mean, I'm sure probably if you've seen our videos, you know that our equipment is very elaborate. And it's elaborate and it's beautiful and all of that. But actually, that can really be fined down. That can be minimized. And that's a challenge for me as much as it is for you, because I've got to figure out for especially now that we have this associate member program in the offing here, I got to figure out how to minimize this equipment. And so you've given me encouragement to go ahead and come up with that. Okay, I got another caller, and right. So thanks a lot for the question. Right. Okay, you're on the air. Who am I talking with? We got one? Well, I guess we lost him. Anyway, in the short time we have remaining, and let's see what other treasures I can dig up out of the seventh ray. And anyway, you want to call in. Remember now, our number is 347-857-1830. That's 347-857-1830. Now, we got about 10 minutes left, and we certainly can take a couple of calls, so give us a call, and we'll do our best to answer your question. And let me see now. I'm going through the seventh ray here, and one of the things that we had a lot of fun with, and we've had a lot of fun with over the years, is our little Gilbert and Sullivan kind of ditty on the Necronomicon. I think most all of you have heard about the Necronomicon. Before I get into reading this little patter song, Gilbert and Sullivan type patter song in the Necronomicon, I want to talk about the Necronomicon a little bit. I was a science fiction fan when I was a kid, and I liked fantasy and I really liked Lovecraft. I mean, gosh, when I was 16 years old and all, I was into Lovecraft and into Shaver and into all of that, and I kind of thought at the time, I kind of thought maybe there really was a Necronomicon, because the way Lovecraft wrote about it, it seemed very authentic, and he was making these references to John Dee, who translated it and all this sort of stuff, and so I kind of thought there was, but it turns out that Howard Phillips Lovecraft was a great fantasy writer, but he really was not an occultist, and he invented the Necronomicon, the reference, and it was if it was like if it was anything that was the inspiration for it, there's probably two different books, both of which I think most of us are familiar with by this time. One of them was The True and Faithful Relation by Casaubon on Dr. Dee and Edward Kelly on their Enochian system. And because we got a caller. Okay. Okay, you're on the air.
Hi,
Who am I speaking with?
From Texas.
Yeah, okay. Do you have a question for me?
Yes, sir. You mentioned that in your video that you should approach Solomonic magic with the same respect as full contact martial art. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the dangers of magic and maybe being able to put the genie back in the bottle.
Okay, that's a good question. Now, we've got a rather subtle thing here that can sneak up and really bite you. And what it is this. The mirror method is very, very effective. And in fact, the first time you do it, it'll just, it'll all the hairs on the back of your neck will stand up because it really does work. However, you can slide back into thinking that, wow, I'm staring at my own reflection, and my own reflection is, fading out, and then this other thing's coming in, but it really started with my own reflection, and even though the sigil of the spirit breaks that up and all this kind of stuff, and I do all this mumbo-jumbo, well, yeah, but this is just a mind game. You can fool yourself into thinking that. And you could really, really get into a lot of trouble because these spirits are universal. They are universal archetypes, and I don't care whether you want to just take it from a straight Jungian point of view. It can still be dangerous. But I take it from a Hermetic point of view, and I can tell you right now that over our years of practice, these spirits have to be handled very, very carefully. And you don't, under any circumstances, do you want to converse with them, talk with them, have anything to do with them outside of a ceremonial setting. You summon them, you treat them with respect, and you ask them to do things for you and whatever, and you send them away, and then you do not have anything more to do with them until you're back in that temple and back with your ritual equipment, and you do it. You have to do this, because if you don't, you are liable to end up with your own not so happy multiple personality disorder, because these spirits love to talk. I mean, they're not hard once you know the method, once you really know how to do it. They're not hard to get a hold of. But they can be difficult to get rid of, and they can also get you off on some really bad tracks. And so I can't stress this strongly enough. I've been at this for 40 years, and I've seen a lot. I've seen people get themselves in trouble with this and everything else, and fortunately, I have never had anybody get themselves in trouble that I didn't warn them. First. So I don't feel terribly guilty about it. I'll have some guilt because I developed this thing originally, but I've never trained anybody and not warned them. Now, does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. I was also wondering, if you start experiencing trouble with the spirits due to inexperience or some unforeseen, not having enough information or something, if you start seeing like a manifestation of weird phenomenon in your life or events or whatever that may be associated with these spirits, is there any way to put these take control back from these type of phenomena?
Yes, there is, and the answer to that is very simple. The answer to that is don't play around with it. If you're going to do it right. Train yourself. Now, for instance, the method itself. Children, teenagers have been doing this at slumber parties and all. They do Bloody Mary. They go into the bathroom and they've got a candle in the dark bathroom and they go, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. And then Bloody Mary shows up in the mirror and they all scream and run out. Okay? Now, that's the phenomenon. That's how it works. But whether that hurts them or not, I don't know. Maybe they shouldn't do it. But the point is, you have to know first how to talk to Bloody Mary, and you got to know how to get Bloody Mary to talk to you, and this requires training. You have to train yourself, and you have to develop I believe you have to develop a Hermetic mindset. You have to thoroughly believe that your symbols and your knowledge and your symbols and your procedures are going to work. And in order to do that, you have to study and you have to practice, and you have to practice self-hypnosis. You have to practice yoga. You have to learn to do this. And anybody can get in front of that mirror and have a spirit show up. Anybody can do that, but you really need to be able to communicate with a spirit. And if you can do that and also perfect the system, then you can control it. Then it'll actually be part of your spiritual development. But if you can't, just don't mess with this. Don't get involved in this, and don't do this as a stunt. Don't do it as a Halloween prank. I mean, if you do, you could really get into more trouble than you can handle. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We're just about out of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read our little Necronomicon thing. Lauren said that we ought to do that for the last thing, sort of as a sign off. And we got 2 callers. 2 minutes. Oh, we got 2 minutes. Okay, we got enough time. Good, 2 minutes. All right, here we go. Remember now, I love Lovecraft, but it's still every few years you will see an ad as well written as can be offering for sale a book whose title is The Selling Book. It's called The Necronomicon, to Summon Horrors from Beyond, or so 'twas claimed by H.P.L., writ by an Arab mad as hell. The author, poor Abdul al-Hazred, was hit by demons in Damascus, and how his book survived, don't ask us. Lovecraft's fans, both far and near, have searched for many a fruitless year to find this book of evil spells, but the truth is sad to tell. There is a key of Solomon, a lesser key of Megaton. There's a Grimoire of Honorius, and other works notorious, Septameron and Chirmidon, complete with Tetragrammaton, but there ain't no Necronomicon, of that we have no doubt. Good night, and we'll see you next week when we discuss Franz Martin.